Good evening, everyone. So I would like to welcome all of you to How to Personalize Your Lesson Activities, this week's latest webinar from NUITEQ Snowflake. Tonight, Danielle Macklin, an educational technology specialist with NUITEQ, will be leading you through the webinar. So thank you for joining us this evening. I think people are probably starting to get into the swing a little bit of this virtual education thing, so hopefully we can help you out with that. And if you have any questions about that, also ask us. And at this time, I would like to welcome Danielle to stage.
All right, so today we are going to spend some time talking about how to take some of the lesson activities that exist in the Snowflake community and customize them, add extensions, differentiate for the needs of your students. So hopefully many of you already know or are familiar with our lesson community. We have thousands and thousands of lessons already loaded in. I'm going to take you to the Explore page of snow.live. And if you are familiar with the search icons or the capabilities, you have the ability to search by particular keywords. So if you're teaching a lesson on fractions, you can simply type in fractions. And then you also have the ability to narrow down your searches. Think of it as filtering your searches by target age ranges, particular lesson activity type. So you can search if you have a favorite lesson activity type, you can search for that template. You can filter down through subject, by countries, and you can also search for NUITEQ teachers. So this is content that has been created by the NUITEQ team. We work pretty rigorously to make sure that our content is standard aligned and that it has high level of rigor. We also really try to focus on incorporating those other extension activities and enrichment opportunities for your students. So just to save a little bit of time, because I want to make sure that I have a lot of time to answer any questions that you have along the way, I already found a couple lessons from the community that I wanted to use in my classroom. I have a few math ones and I have an ELA lesson activity. So I already found them, played them, thought they would work, and I'm just going to take you to where I found those lessons. So once you play any lesson activity from the lesson community, it automatically becomes yours, and you have the ability to edit and change any part of it. So I found these 3 activities, and I'm going to do a little editing to make sure that they fit the needs of my students. So I think I'll do this even and odd one. So I'm going to show you first how the lesson would play on its own. So from the lesson community, I think there might be a YouTube video at the beginning of this one. So we have the YouTube video at the beginning. So this is for a grade 3 math lesson on even and odd numbers. So if I wanted to keep the video, I could keep it. And then I'll also show you how I could edit the video or include my own video. So assuming I've gone through and watched the entire video with my students, I now have the lesson activity. This is our group's lesson activity template. The task would be students would sort the different boxes into their respective categories of even and odd. If I check the arrow, I can see a preview of the video. I also can see any additional extra practice activities. So there's a game that can be played with it, other additional resources. So there are my external links. And I'm going to go ahead and select edit. When you make edits on the lesson activity, it is only going to make those edits on your dashboard. So in your teacher dashboard, that's the only place that would change the lesson. It's not going to change the lesson in the community. You do have the ability to re-upload with any of your edits into the community, but it's not going to change the original content. So this lesson was made by one of my colleagues. It's not going to change the stuff that she has included on it. So with this, we have our 2 categories, even and odd. I would probably keep those the same, but if I were doing a different activity and wanted to add another group, I could add in an additional group. So maybe I would want to have a multiple of 3. And now I can take that lesson and I can add more information to it. So I have 3. And you can see as I'm adding in new numbers, new tiles are appearing in my preview window. So there's one way that I can just add in more information. The other thing I could do, if I found that this was maybe a little challenging for my students, is I could delete some of the boxes as well. So I can delete what's there. And as if you watch my preview window, you can see as I am deleting, the boxes disappear from my preview. And obviously, the fewer boxes you have, the bigger those boxes are. So this would be really good if you're doing lessons where you have students who really need the larger visual, having maybe only a few options. You can see that the box size gets a little bit bigger, so it's a little easier to see for those students. I also have the ability where I could take this lesson and I could add in my own sound. So I could record audio up to 15 seconds in length. So I would probably record just reading off the number 3 and then save it. And now when that student moves that box, let me find my 3, it'll have the audio play. So it's just another feature to help make your lessons unique to you. For a lot of students, I'm sure it would probably be nice for them to be able to hear your voice in part of that lesson activity. So we'll just say that for the sake of time, I have everything included that I want to include in this particular lesson activity. If this were something that I were sending to my students, one of the options I have is I can also change information in my description. So I could edit out whatever I did not want to be in, and maybe I just want to keep a little bit of the instructions, or I want to include my own instructions as well. When you finish, complete the worksheet. A new feature that we have with our newest release is we have the ability to have the description show before the lesson begins. So I can change that. So now my students would then see, if they were completing this on their own device, they would see this description before they participate in the lesson activity itself. I also can add in screenshots. So I can add in previews, maybe a preview of the worksheet itself, or preview if there were multiple rounds. If I wanted to include any additional information, this would just be a little preview screen of that. I also have the ability to change the YouTube video. Now let's say that I really liked this video, but I only wanted maybe the first 60 seconds of the video to play. So I can edit down the time so that only the first minute of the video plays. And I can choose to have this play before the lesson as it's defaulted to. Or I could choose to have it just as an extra resource after my students have completed the lesson activity. Or if I didn't like this video at all, I have the ability to upload my own video. So this was even and odd. I would simply search for. I have a tendency whenever I'm searching for videos, I always try and add for kids at the end, just to make sure that the content I'm pulling up is more relevant to what could possibly be out there. So maybe I wanted to use this video. And then now I have that new video that would play at the beginning. So if you've recorded, maybe you've recorded your computer screen, or you have recordings of you teaching the concept that you would normally share with your students in their online learning platform, you can simply upload those to YouTube. And even if you have it just as a private link, so it's not for the entire world to see, it's just for the select people, you can upload your own videos to that as well. And then again, you can add and change information here. You can add in your own web links. So let's say that I had a worksheet I wanted my students to complete. I can pull that in, just a little Google Doc. And now I have that attached in. Title it. And then the keywords, tags, you can edit those to fit the needs of your students as well as adding in your own standards. Now, this lesson was for standards related to Australia, but maybe I would want to search for my Common Core standards related to even and odd numbers for math. I can add those in as well. Or if I had specific state standards, I could include my specific state standards as well. I also have the ability to add more customizations. So it's all really just dependent on how much more time you want to put in. Now, I happen to think a lot of the lessons we put in the community are pretty good all by themselves, but we know that making things special for your students and making them meet the learning needs of your students is also really important. And that's why we have so many of these features of being able to edit. So I could also edit the backgrounds of my numbers. So I could do a background change. I could pull in backgrounds that I've saved from my computer. I could do basic image searches, or I can connect with my Google Drive, OneDrive, and our content gallery. And we have a lot in our gallery. So we have a lot of different backgrounds. We have a whole series of different drawings, especially letters and math, which are really great for our littler kids. So I wanted to pull in math. So then now I have something a little bit more different, a little different on my background. So this tile now is going to have the picture that I brought in. And then the same for the customizations over on our preview window. I can change the font, as well as the size of the font for my students, the color, and whether or not it has a shadow. Shadow kind of gives it a bold look, so you can see that idea. And then I have the ability to change our themes. We have a lot of fun preloaded themes. So I'm just going to pick space, and then get rid of the old background. I have to update my preview. There we go. So now I have a different background, or I could also pull in my own background. So again, I could search for an image that I saved on my computer. I taught middle school social studies, so I would often have an image related to whatever we were learning about. So when it was ancient Greece, it was a lot of pictures of like the Parthenon. When we did Rome, I had a whole bunch of the Colosseum. So it was kind of whatever we were related to what we were learning about. Same with the image search. I could search for a particular background, or upload from my Google Drive or OneDrive files, as well as from our content gallery. Now, the picture of the cupcake that I showed you from our content gallery was in drawings. We also have a folder of backgrounds. And within all of the subfolders, we have a whole bunch more of different backgrounds. So you can see our different previews of those. And this is all included on Snow.live. So this is not unique to my computer. This is stuff that we already have there, just to make it a little bit easier for you, so that you don't have to spend a whole lot of time, if you don't want to, searching for those additional backgrounds to customize and specialize your lessons. So there, now we have the background that I would use for my students. If I was satisfied with everything that I've done with my lesson activity, I can then send that activity to my students. And I'll do a quick refresh on how to set up your classes from your teacher dashboard. So I can take my class, let's do that one, and I can send it to particular students. Now with this lesson activity template, this was a assessment template. So we have 8 assessment templates. If I select gradable assessment, I'm then going to receive the data back on how my students scored on this particular activity. So it would show me which ones they answered correctly and which ones they answered incorrectly. And then I would be able to send that assignment to my particular students. Right now I have it set with no due date, but I could say, okay, you have until Friday to complete this lesson activity. And then I send that assignment to my students. And then from my student end, they would see that assignment and they'd have the ability to complete it. So I can then go and I can review the progress of my students in those classes. Now, obviously, I haven't completed that assignment yet. I have a student account where I try to show what it would look like from a student perspective as well, but I can see, okay, my Snowflake test account, there's the one assignment. My Snowflake demo class, here are 13 assignments that I've sent. You can see a few more. And then I know that this one's completed because I did that. When I select the assignments themselves, it'll show me information about that particular assignment and the students who completed that. So in this case, I sent it only to one student. I can see when I open up by their name, the number correct out of the total number, their percentage score, And then I can see customized information about which questions did they answer correctly and incorrectly. My students also have the ability to see this. So from their perspective, since this was a gradable assessment, once they've completed that, all of this information then becomes available to them. I can also see how long my students spent completing the lesson activity. So if they rushed through it and only spent 30 seconds, it's going to tell me they only spent 30 seconds. And then I can provide feedback to my student. So I can tell my student, let me go ahead and edit. Be careful with whatever. And then my student would receive that feedback on their end. So they would have that notification that me as their teacher had given them a little customized information. So I go back to my lesson activities. The great thing with our Snow.Live platform as well is I could take any of these lesson activities. So I had played my original even and odd number. I customized it to meet my own needs. If I duplicate the lesson, I'm now going to have another copy, and it will tell me that I probably have it 3 times now. It'll tell me that there's my copy of that particular lesson. So then I could go back through again and I could edit this lesson, maybe taking out a round that didn't need to be there. If I thought that this would be too challenging for my students, I could change that. And then again, I could customize all of the backgrounds, the images. I could add more, take away, and then even retitle this. So maybe I want this to be for period 1. So now I have the same information, but customized and unique to the needs of my students. And again, I can send that particular lesson activity to my students if it were meeting the needs that I wanted it to meet. So if I go back to my lesson activities, we can see there's my new copy of my lesson activity itself. Now my students, when they complete a lesson activity, so I'm going to take one and I'm going to share it, just so you can see from my student perspective what it would look like. So I'm taking this lesson activity. I'm going to actually share this as private. So when I share this lesson activity as private, it's only going to be visible to myself and to the students that I send it to, as well as any groups that I share it with. So it's not going into the entire Snowflake community. So just share that privately. And if I go to my shared lesson activities, when my student receives this activity, they have the ability to see the info. So all of the information related to that particular activity they would have access to as well, including any additional links that might be available. So I hope that this helped explain a little bit of how to take lesson activities from the community and customize them to meet the needs of your students. I'd like to take some time now and open up to any questions that you have, not just about customization, but anything Snowflake related that we can help you with.
So Danielle, there has been one question of, is this being recorded? So I answered yes privately to the person, but just so everyone in the group knows, yes, it is being recorded and all the recordings of all the webinars are available. So that I would also like to let everyone know that we are holding webinars every Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. That will be the same topic that we're doing in the evening at 7. If that works for people better, feel free to sign on. It is geared more towards our European market so that we can be at a time where they can sign in, but you're more than welcome to join at 1 o'clock as well, as opposed to coming on in the evening if that works better for you. In addition, every Monday, we have a drop-in time at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you can drop in, and we're not doing a presentation. It's just to ask any questions that might have popped up as you've been working on something over the past few days. So that's just a time to drop in, ask a question. If you want to hang out the whole time, you can. If not, then you can ask your question and go on and do what you need to do. So just wanted to let you know of those 3 things.
So I'll wait a minute, give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have. Otherwise, I'll keep moving forward and sharing some other things if you'd like.
I would like if you could go over the poll features, as there's been a couple of changes with the polls.
Yes, I love polls too.
So just so the group knows, there have been some updates lately to Poll. So if you've used Poll in the past, there's some things that you might want to look at that are new enhancements to the software.
Yes, absolutely. So our poll feature is really great. I love this feature. I loved using it in my classrooms with my students. It is found under your Create button. You simply select Poll. And it is a real-time response system. So with the poll feature, you have the ability to ask interactive questions with your students, and they would respond using their own device. So if they're working on a Chromebook, if they're working on an iPad, if they're working on their cell phone, all of those options are available. So some of the new features we have with this, so I'm just going to do this as a test poll. I have the option to display the questions on my student's device. I would likely select that. I have the ability to change my backgrounds. So again, if I were doing something like a particular content, I could add in that background. Let's see if I can pull one up real quick. So I can pull in my background, change my font. So similar to what we see in our lesson activities portion. And then now the fun stuff, the questions. So we have a few different types of question categories. We have multiple choice, which is exactly how it sounds. It's the ability to add multiple answers. We have yes, no. I think of yes, no often as like a true, false. You do have the ability to edit, so it doesn't have to necessarily read yes or no. It just simply means that there's only two options. So I could change this to, red or blue. If maybe I was asking, what's your favorite food? They could say tacos or cheeseburgers or whatever. So it's just the two options, whereas if it were multiple choice, you have the ability to add several options. You would then select the correct answer. So there would only be one correct answer. You have the ability to add time limits, up to 30 seconds or no time limit. We also have the ability to do text. So these are some of the older features. So I would have my question here. My students would then respond back with a text answer. And if you'd like, I'll take a second and write up just some questions, just so if you are working on your own device, you can see what it would look like from a student perspective as well.
While you do that,
Sure.
Then I've had a question. Someone asked if we could send the links for the other times for the webinars that we're doing. So in order to register for either the 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which would be Central European time, 7 o'clock p.m., or to register for the 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you would just go to nuiteq.com/webinar. So nuiteq.com/webinar. For the drop-in session, I do not have that on that page as of yet because it just got put out today. So you would be able to probably go to that page soon and register for that. If not, if you would send me a question in the question tab, I can send you the link. Or if you would like to email me at jr@nuitec.com, I could send you the links there.
While Jack was sharing that, I'm just adding a couple of questions. So I did a short answer text question, multiple choice question. And then our new ones that we have image and we have text with image. So with image, students would use their device. So this is great if they're using it on their phone also. They have the ability to access their camera, or they could browse images that they've already saved. So we have an image question, share or selfie. I have the ability to add my time limit. And then the other option I have for another question is I could select text with image and share a landscape. And to keep these really general, you could obviously go more specific depending on the content. And do no time limit as well. So now I have a variety of my questions, and I'm ready to share with my students who are completing this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. So I could create this poll ahead of time, and then when I'm ready for it to go live, I'll show you what it would look like as it's saved back in. Just like with your lesson activities, it saves kind of in its own little space on your teacher dashboard. So you could make all this ahead of time and then share it with your students. And once you start, students have two ways that they can join in. So if I were screen sharing with my kiddos, I could share just this, and they can join through ANSR with the numbers at the back. Every time you play, the numbers will be different. They also have the ability to use their own device. So I'm going to pull that up on mine.
Any of you can also go to ansr.it and put that code in and you'll be able to respond.
And I see we have a few people coming in. I'll give you a little bit more time just in case you want to join us. And for those of you who are not joining, I'm doing this on my phone. So from my phone, I can see, hopefully you can see that, I can see the background that my teacher has shared, as well as it's telling me how many other people are joining. With our poll features, it is entirely anonymous, so you're not going to have a student name connected to it, which I know can sometimes be a little nerve-wracking, so you never know what a student's going to do in real time. But I think it's kind of part of that idea of teaching digital citizenship too, of, you know, how do you answer things responsibly? How do you not be a troll when you're online? So I think this is a good feature to have. So we'll just stick with the 4 that we have now, and I'm ready to continue forward. So I'm going to go ahead and select the next button. And my first question comes in. I'm going to turn my volume down just a little bit. And it's asking me, what is my favorite food? So I have the ability to control when students answer. So right now on my student devices, there's nothing they can do yet because I need to select begin. Once I select begin, they're going to have, if I've selected a time limit, this one has 20 seconds. They have 20 seconds to answer. The question and the answer now appears on their device, and I can answer. And as the answers come in, and if you can hear, it's ticking down the time. And then now all of my answers are in. So I can see what my students have answered. My students get their response on their device. And then I'm actually going to hide this. So some of the options we see on our little, if you want to call it your hamburger menu, your 3 lines, you have the ability to hide the questions so that students wouldn't be seeing this on their screens. You also have the ability, we filter out all of those, the bad words, but if there's other words that you really want to make sure that the students are not including, you can add those as well and suggest those bad words. But I think we do a pretty solid job keeping the really dangerous ones out. And then when it's all finished, I can export my data. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hide my question menu. And now I'm going to select next. So now I have my next question. Again, I can give my students as much wait time as I feel that they need. And then once I select begin, I now have the multiple choice question. I'm going to intentionally answer incorrectly so I can share that with you. So everyone's answered. I go back here to see the results. And I can see there was my correct answer. Here was my incorrect answer. And on my student device, and if you can't see this at all, please let me know. It'll tell me on my device as a student what I answered, and it'll also tell me what the correct answer should have been. And then the next ones are the ones with images. So I have the ability, again, wait time if I need to, and then select begin. So now my students can probably get, if they're doing their selfie, making sure they look okay. And then for my student device, they have the option, it's going to read camera or browse. So in this case, I'll just do my camera. And as my camera pulls up, do a big cheesy grin. And then I have the ability to do adjustments as well. So I can crop it. When I'm happy, I can send it in. And then my answers pull up. So that's one feature. Students could also share images from their device. So I did the camera option. They also have the ability to share pictures. So I know there's more. I'm not going to make everyone share if you don't want to, but now I have my pictures. Now let's say that I didn't like what a student had shared. You can kick them off and delete it. So now I can see all of my results. There we go. And then the next option is an image with a text. So I had selected camera option first. I'm going to select browse. So this would be really great. Let's see what I have in my photos. This would be really great for students as they're working on their own device, and you wanted them to share, maybe they had to take, as part of the directions, take a screenshot of your homework assignment and submit it. So that's something that they could add to it. Let's see if I can find a picture. What's the question asking? A landscape. And I also have the ability with this. So I have my landscape. I have the ability to enter text as well. So I'm going to add my text. And then when I'm happy, again, I hit the OK. So now I have my image with the text included as well. So those are new features that we have with our polls, the ability to have images and the ability to have images with text, which I love. I think that's such a great, fun feature, especially since so many devices are equipped with webcams or some form of camera. It'd be really great too to kind of have students being able to add in their own pictures to share as well. So there we go. Again, have all of my answers submitted in. And once my poll had ended, so in this case, my poll's done. If this poll had had more questions, I would be able to see what all of the information, or all of the data, the information about those questions and answers. And then I could take that and I can, let me go back to my home. If I go back to my polls, and you can see this is stored right in your lesson activities. If I go back to my edit, you have the ability to export your CSV information. So then you would be able to see, and it would download as a file onto your computer. You'd be able to see the information that had been shared during this poll. So if it were the multiple choice questions or the short answers, it would all pop back up on a CSV file. So then you could go through the data of it as well. So in this case, we have everything was mostly open-ended for this one. It's a really great way to have that added level of engagement with students. I know they're spending a lot of time right now on devices, doing all of their schoolwork and their learning. So it can get a little repetitive and probably feel like they're just staring at a screen. Having this feature is going to allow you to have more students actively participating as well. So while the lesson activities could be the early part of the lesson so that they would complete it, get the information that they need, you can use the poll feature as that follow-up and checking for understanding and even engaging in dialogue with your students. And having that ability for it to be anonymous, I found for my kiddos, it gave them that little bit of confidence because they weren't as worried about oh gosh, I don't want everyone to see my answer. But they'd still participate because they knew that their name isn't going to be tied to it. So they would have that kind of feeling okay about sharing. I mean, these were middle schoolers, and of course I always want to make them look good in front of their peers. That's number one rule, is to make them look cool. So this was a way that they could share kind of in a safe environment and not worry about somebody looking, being like, oh, well, you didn't capitalize that letter. Oh, you spelled that word wrong. It didn't matter because their name wasn't tied to it. So it's just an informal way to share information. So I'm going to go back, and once I've played this poll, it shared back in. When I go back to home, it shares right under my lesson activities. It stores all of your polls. So this one, it was there. So there's other polls that I've made. And again, I could edit my information, or I can play it as is. All right, are there any other questions about any of our lesson activity types, about any of the poll features, anything from our community that I could help answer?
So while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, I wanted to remind people that we do have a YouTube channel. If you search for NUITEQ content on YouTube, we have uploaded all the videos that we have added to our lesson activities on that YouTube channel to make them available to anyone that may not have a subscription to Snowflake at the time. So right now, for 6th to 8th grade, we have one video that teaches every single Common Core math standard, 6th to 8th grade. So if there are any middle school teachers that you know that need some help with how are they going to lecture while they're on a computer, they don't need to, there is a video for every single one of the math standards. So feel free to use those. Again, just go to YouTube and search for NUITEQ content. If you would like to email me at jr@nuitec.com, I'll be happy to send you thank you, Danielle. Yep. I'd be happy to send you the link to that. And in addition, there are a couple of books that we've narrated from open source books that you could use and use them as even exemplars of how you may go on and do your own book narrations. So what I've done is I go and choose books from freekidsbooks.org. Some of those are public domain or available for commercial use, and I download them as a PDF and then just read through them. So that allows students that may be English language learners or with some type of learning disability to go through and be able to have the book read at the same time that they're reading it. So there's some of those there. There are over 73 math lessons, I think, at this point. And that's all available to anyone. You do not have to have a subscription to Snowflake at this time. We wanted to make that available to anyone in the country. So that's there. We will not keep you on the phone or on the web. So any questions from anyone before we go? I'm going to read it because hi, not a question, but I want to say thank you for these webinars. I'm new to Snowflake and NUITEQ, and I'm excited to get going at my school. Thank you very much. So thank you, Jack and Danielle. We love doing this. It's kind of funny because I wasn't sure I would love doing this. And when I came up with the idea with the company, I was like, I'm not sure how much I want to commit to every Wednesday night, but it really is a lot of fun. And I don't know the people that have been here for a while, but I feel like I'm getting to know people virtually, and it's kind of nice, and we enjoy doing it. Danielle and I talk and plan a lot offline to get ready for them. So thank you for saying that. And again, anytime you have questions or if there are certain topics that you want to cover that we're not covering, shoot me an email and we'll be glad to try to work those into our webinar agenda schedule. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, daytime, whatever time it is where you are. So thank you for joining with us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again.